There's more speculation that there is a memorandum of understanding between the feds and Alberta, including support for an oil pipeline. Here to discuss this, along with other federal political issues, is Brian Lilley of the Toronto Sun. Brian, hello and welcome back.
Good to be with you again, and no shortage of federal political stories to talk about.
That is for sure. So, Brian, what thinks you? Do you think there's going to be an MOU? What should we expect here?
Look, the Carney PMO is being pretty tight-lipped. The Premier's office for Danielle Smith is being pretty tight-lipped. I called them up and it's like, okay, well, what can you tell me? Oh, we can't confirm or deny anything. But they're still hoping that they're working towards a memorandum of understanding. We've been hearing about this for some time. A little while ago, Premier Smith said that it would be weeks, not days. Now it appears it could be within days. A memorandum of understanding that would include support for a bitumen pipeline to British Columbia's northwest coast. Essentially Northern Gateway-ish, not exactly the Northern Gateway route, but something along those lines. And also either the repeal or reform of the 9 bad laws. Will it be all of them? Will it be some of them? These are the issues that we don't know right now. And also, what kind of caveats are put on the ability of Alberta to get a pipeline route? David Eby in British Columbia has been very much against it. Does Premier Smith have to go out and do the federal government's work? This is what some critics of this are saying at the moment. But the truth is, we don't know. But if Alberta does have to go out and negotiate with BC and negotiate with British Columbia Indigenous groups, then that's not really much of a help to Alberta. If the federal government says, look, we have the authority and the power to do this and we will help you, then that's a bit different. So, look, the Premier's office is still being very positive on this. As Premier Smith has been for months, she has been very positive about the change in tone and tenor of the relationship between her and her government and the current Carney government compared to the former Trudeau government, which was essentially always telling Alberta, go pound sand. So we'll wait and see. Speculation is it could be as early as Thursday, but these deadlines have come and gone in the past. And when you're down to the short strokes, when it's like if anyone plays golf, you think you're going to sink that putt and then it just goes a little bit awry and you got to recalibrate. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the BC there. So BC Premier David Eby obviously speaking out against the plan before it's even released. Just the mention of this plan seems to be causing problems in the Liberal caucus. But does Prime Minister Carney have the political capital to push this through?
I think that he does. Look, if you take the British Columbia government's stance on it, they're offside of where their population is. The population of British Columbia is very open to a bitumen pipeline to coastal tidewater on their coast, which is Canada's coast, by the way. It doesn't belong exclusively to BC. So Premier Eby is offside of his own population. You look at where the resistance is coming from within the Liberal caucus. Yeah, sure, it's BC Liberals who, everyone thinks that the election is only determined by Ontario. But no, for the last few elections, it's been Ontario and BC where swing voters decide which way it goes. Does it go Liberal? Does it go Conservative? Does it go majority? Does it go minority? BC is very important to the Liberals in being able to hold power. But all of these MPs, I want to point this out, all of these MPs would be unemployed if it were not for Mark Carney. If Mark Carney had not come in and taken over the Liberal Party and tried to turn it into something different, I mean, not completely different, but something different, these guys would have lost. If Chrystia Freeland or Karina Gould or Mélanie Joly or any of these Justin Trudeau retreads had won the Liberal leadership back in March, I think Pierre Poilievre still would have won the federal election, at which point these guys would be looking for new jobs. So Mark Carney has the ability to say, look, sit down, shut up, you're only here because of me, and this is the direction we're going in now. And if you don't like it, you can resign and I'll call a by-election and find someone else who will be on board. But he's not quite there yet. He is not willing to exercise that kind of political capital. He should be willing to do it, but he hasn't shown that willingness yet.
Brian, you've been writing about potential high profile departures, including industry minister Mélanie Joly. So you've been writing that it's looking like it's looking to become that Joly wants to become Canada's ambassador to France, basically, in a nutshell. So what's the story behind that?
Jeanette, if you saw the home that she would get if she became ambassador to France, if you saw the neighborhood she'd live in, you'd be like, sign me up. I want this. Mélanie Joly has been in federal politics since 2015, so that's a decade now. She was part of the Trudeau crew that was recruited to run. She represents a Montreal riding. She's been in charge of industry and heritage and several other portfolios. She's never really shown herself to be a great administrator, a great minister, but she is very popular in Quebec and delivers votes. So Mark Carney kept her on. Now, though, it appears Carney wants her to go, and her request is make me ambassador to France and I'll leave. You would live in this gorgeous home just down the street from the palace that houses the French president. You'd be getting invites to all the best parties, all the best shopping. Who wouldn't want that job? It sounds like a dream job for someone like Joly. So
Yeah.
this is all part of Mark Carney trying to restructure the Liberal Party before the next election. So we've got Mélanie Joly looking for the exits. We've heard that Bill Blair, the former Toronto police chief, former public safety minister, he's been tapped to become the next high commissioner in London. That was reported a couple of months ago. It hasn't happened yet. I hope it's wrong because he's a grumpy old cop and would be a horrible diplomat. Right now, we've got Ralph Goodale, former Regina Liberal MP, in there. He's a good diplomat. He's like a happy-go-lucky guy who will make you feel good anytime you meet him. Bill Blair is going to make you feel bad about yourself, and that's not what we need in a diplomat. We got Jonathan Wilkinson from North Vancouver looking at becoming the EU ambassador in Brussels. Stephen Guilbeault looking to leave. Rumors of a cabinet shuffle the week between Christmas and when the House rises on December 12th. So all of this is happening at a time when Carney's still eyeing a majority, but also trying to put a new face on the Liberal Party, one that is not to the left of the NDP, one that's a bit more business friendly. But I will caution, still not a conservative government, just a bit more business friendly than Trudeau was, which isn't tough.
Okay, so the Conservatives say that if a spring election comes, they will be ready, and they have announced a new campaign manager. So tell us about him, Steve Outhouse.
Well, Jenny Byrne is out. Steve Outhouse is in. Jenny Byrne is still an advisor to Pierre Poilievre. She is still on national council, but she's not going to run the next campaign. And that had been announced a little while ago, but people thought, okay, well, who's going to run it? Steve Outhouse is someone who has worked on campaigns across the country. He's worked on national campaigns, but, for your viewers, he helped Alberta Premier Danielle Smith win the 2023 election. If you remember, between when Jason Kenney resigned and when the election happened, there was some speculation the NDP could win. Various polls said the NDP at various points months before the election were ahead by 12, 15 points, 9 points, 8 points. It was not looking good. Steve Outhouse came in, helped focus the party, the UCP, helped focus the premier and her team, and brought them to victory. She got more than 50% of the vote. That's what you need in a campaign manager. So, look, Jenny Byrne ran a good campaign last time. It was not the campaign that she wanted, but more than 40% of the vote, that normally gets you a majority. Things change from when they plotted out the campaign to when it happened because of Donald Trump, because of Justin Trudeau resigning, all of that. Party obviously felt they needed to bring in new blood, a new vision. That's happened. So all of this is going on. Steve Outhouse's most recent win was Newfoundland and Labrador, helping the PC party there end 10 years of Liberal rule, putting Tony Wakeham in as Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. So this is a guy who's got a lot of wins under his belt. He, became quite prominent several years ago when he helped Leslyn Lewis go from being close to a party outsider to winning every province west of Ontario on the second ballot in the Conservative leadership race against Peter MacKay and Erin O'Toole. She won Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC in that leadership race, but it wasn't enough for her to win the leadership overall. She dropped out on the second ballot. So this is a guy who's got a good track record. He's well respected by people inside and outside of the party.
Interesting. Okay, last week some big news broke across Canada, and I can't wait to see this to be turned into a movie because I'm sure it will be. So there were some arrests across Canada related to a Canadian drug kingpin, Ryan Wedding, former Olympian, who works alongside the Sinaloa Cartel out of Mexico to move cocaine and other drugs into Canada. So in the last 5 years, though, Alberta law enforcement has shut down significant fentanyl super labs in northern and southern parts of the province, along with several drug houses in centers like Lethbridge, where I am. So, Brian, what does this tell us? That the Americans are the ones who are leading this investigation? And does it lend any credence to the Trump claims about Canada and fentanyl?
I think it does. And look, I know that most of the media in this country just poo-poos the idea that, Trump's claims about Canada and fentanyl are correct in any way. I remember shortly after that happened, I met with Premier Smith. Can't remember if it was Ottawa or Toronto, but we met, we did an interview, we chatted, and she told me straight up that fentanyl is a problem in Western Canada in terms of fentanyl moving south. And these arrests with Ryan Wedding last week involved people in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Montreal, in Quebec, in Toronto area. This is a massive operation that moves cocaine and meth and other drugs into Canada. And it is also believed that they move fentanyl south. So these are the trade routes. BC and Alberta have been major problems for these fentanyl super labs. Precursors come in via the Port of Vancouver. They get shipped into the various areas that the organized crime rings control, be it in BC or southern Alberta or perhaps northern Alberta. And then it moves across the country and into communities straight across the country and down into the United States. We are fooling ourselves if we don't believe that. You know what? I've got this book right here. It's called The Sixth Family. It is written by a couple of colleagues, Lee Lamoth and Adrian Humphreys. Lee covered organized crime for the Toronto Sun for years. Adrian Humphreys covers National Post. This book is more than 10 years old, but it was about the Rizzuto crime family and how it's a Montreal mafia family and how they were the drug suppliers to the five families of New York. It's why it's called The Sixth Family. These guys became so powerful supplying drugs that they were the suppliers to the top mobsters in New York. This is not the first time. You can look to the French Connection, the movie with Gene Hackman back in 1971. We were smuggling heroin into the United States back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This is not new that Canada is a conduit. It's just new that we want to stick our heads in the sand. Think back to Prohibition and bootlegging. Canadians are very proud to all claim that, Al Capone slept here. Al Capone used the Moose Jaw tunnels. Al Capone had a house in the Ottawa Valley. We're all proud of that. But look, I don't know why, but we are. We were involved in bootlegging of booze. We are involved in the drug trade. These are not good things, and right now it's hurting us. But this Ryan Wedding, he wasn't arrested, but several of his associates were, including his lawyer here in the Toronto area, who advised him, according to police, advised him to take out a witness to make charges go away. These are very serious charges. The Americans leading this, as opposed to us, tells us that our officials aren't taking this seriously. I know Lethbridge has been incredibly hard hit by fentanyl over the years. I understand with the changes the Alberta government's brought into how it deals with this, things are improving. That's good. It's why I recommend the Alberta model to other provincial governments. Sadly, too many want to follow the BC model, which only leads to more drug deaths and not fewer.
Brian Lilley of the Toronto Sun, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.